Welcome to AIA TV, and I'd like to welcome to the show Rafigh Pooya. Welcome, Rafigh.
Thank you.
Rafigh is a native Azerbaijani, came to this country 1972
Precisely.
to study film.
Yes.
Tell me more about it, please.
Well, basically, when I was going to high school, because I had visual background, I was a painter, I decided that I was going to be a filmmaker, and I decided that I was going to some of the best school there was possible. So I decided to come to States and go to UCLA, and that's precisely what I did.
Did you know exactly what you were going to study when you came to this country? Or
Absolutely. I was actually 13 years old in high school.
Wow.
I decided to be a filmmaker.
How much cinema you used to watch, and did you have any conceived idea of what's in the future for you?
Well, a lot. I used to see many films. Of course, the dominant films in Iran at the time were the American films, Indian films, and Egyptian films. At the time, Iranian film industry wasn't as developed, and basically Iranian films were influenced by Indian and Egyptian films.
Okay, now we're talking about Iranian film, but as yourself you pioneered the political problem of Azerbaijan as far the division of it and how it was split in two between the former USSR and Iran. So what was that film?
Well, this is the film that I recently made, and it was recently shown in Los Angeles, Santa Monica at the Laemmle Theaters for weeks. And basically the title of the film is Broken Bridges. The film is shot on location in LA, San Francisco, and also Big Sur area on Pacific Coast Highway. And then we went with our crew to Moscow, and we shot in Red Square. Then we moved from Moscow to Baku, Azerbaijan, filmed there. Then we had some scenes that were shot in Caspian Sea itself and Caspian Shore, and also at the border of Iran and Azerbaijan.
An independent film sounds like a Hollywood budget.
Right.
Is it?
It's actually, it's interesting. It has the Hollywood look, but it is truly independent because our budget, if I may say, is under $1 million.
Wow, very impressive. You started with the documentary film as your first feature.
That's correct.
Is there a certain individual documentary filmmaker influenced your this direction, or?
Well, I think if there is any, I'm not aware of it. But I am not attempting to say that I am not influenced by anybody. We all are influenced somehow by our environment. But as far as making that documentary film, specifically, what I had in mind, an original structure for the film. The title of that film was, and still is, In Defense of People. It's a feature documentary, 35 millimeter. It meant to be my thesis project at UCLA when I was getting my MFA, but also it was officially selected for Cannes Film Festival, which was actually very surprising at the time because Cannes Film Festival selects only fictional films and dramatic films.
It was the first documentary to be submitted officially to Cannes Film Festival. That's very impressive.
That was very kind of newsworthy in a sense. And it got a lot of good write-outs. After that, it ventured to go to many, many major international film festivals, won several awards, including International Jury Prize Award at the Leipzig Film Festival, Certificate of Merit at International Chicago Film Festival. It was officially selected for Montreal Film Festival, Toronto Film Festival, Calcutta Film Festival, Sao Paulo Film Festival in Brazil, and many, many film festivals.
Very impressive. When you come to this country and interact with this industry, with the motion picture industry, and you have a different perspective when you come from any other country other than America, Does that give you an edge? Because always American very accepting of foreign film directors more than anything else.
Yeah. Well, that's a very interesting question. Actually, when I was listening to your question, I thought you were going to say, does that give you a disadvantage? And it was very nice that you said, does that give you an edge? Because I believe it does. Because you come from a different perspective and you are not falling into an existing setup. And as a result, art being original and creative, you can pick up things that other people may not see.
I think it gives it another dimension.
Yeah, precisely. Very good point.
How do you see, is there an empathy between the Hollywood film, the commercial film, and the art film?
Well, I think if there is anything, I think independent films or art films have an advantage. And I will tell you what the advantage is. In my opinion, when you are working with a film with very high budget, you have to satisfy your investors, the studio, the producers, and as a result, they are looking at protecting their money because there's huge amount of money involved. So you have to kind of go along with what they want you to do. So you lose certain amount of originality. Whereas with independent films, low budget films, you can afford to be a lot more creative and original.
That's great. We're going to break away for a clip of your film, and we will be right back.
Sure.
Welcome back. We just been watching the opening credit for Broken Bridges with Rafigh Pooya. Looks fantastic.
Thank you.
You conceived the idea, or somebody else? It was somebody else's idea?
No, it was my idea.
You're a co-writer also?
I am co-writer. The idea was mine, and we wrote it with Rustam Ibrahim Bekov, who's a great writer. He won Oscar for another film called Burned by the Sun. And he's written various good books, screenplays. I shared the idea with him, and we sat down and wrote the screenplay together.
How long the process took? As
Actually,
far as writing?
a year.
A year?
Yes.
A year writing?
Yes.
How about shooting it and everything else?
Well, shooting took, we were in Moscow and Azerbaijan for 3 months. And then we came back, and interestingly enough, we had shot the film reverse. The beginning of the film takes place in LA, but we shot the LA scenes at the end.
Yeah.
And the San Francisco scenes also at the end.
The British intelligence service organized a coup d'etat in Iran, arresting Dr. Mossadegh.
Okay.
And returning the exiled Shah.
Part of the film
Is it those are documentary footages?
Well, what it is, you see Peter Rekel on the screen, who is our main actor. This is the man who was born in Iran but raised in Azerbaijan, and he's a documentary filmmaker. So he's going back to Russia to make a film about plight of his family. And when he does that, right now he's viewing the footage that he's working on his documentary film, but that's part of the plot of the movie. So
In
he's
1979,
talking about the visuals that he had shot for his documentary film. And when he does go to Moscow, the KGB agents are very suspicious of him because he's gone back there with a camera. And as a result, they start following him. Nevertheless, he moves on with making his film, shooting here and there. Then, of course, there is the drama of trying to get the footage out of Russia, which is very interesting. And also the love story that develops between him and the young woman who's playing the role of his mother in the movie, which is a beautiful actress. She won the Best Actress Award for performing that role at the International Baku Film Festival. And then basically, now the movie becomes triangle love story because our character, Jeff, which is played by Peter Ruckel, is involved with an American woman in LA. They've lived together for years, and now she's calling Baku and finding out about the other woman, and it becomes a bit of complexity between them. So this man ends up being kind of between two cultures, two women, and also almost the career, which is the filmmaker, and a normal life, which his girlfriend wants him to live. So in other words, the expectation from a filmmaker who has to travel all the time, in this case, is for him to settle down and live a normal life, which isn't always very easy for a filmmaker.
It's a great story, great footage, and everything looks fantastic.
Thank you.
How difficult is it to distribute a great film if it's not produced by the big studios?
Well, I tell you something. It used to be even more difficult. It's gotten a bit easier for independent filmmakers simply because of their own effort. The credit goes back to the independent filmmakers that with their perseverance, they've created so many good films that the films have been so critically and commercially successful that as the result, many distributors are not interested in independent films. As you see, many independent films are grossing big.
When was this produced?
Well, this was filmed in early 90s, and we worked with the post-production, and a few years ago we completed it, and then it went through festival circles. It went to various major film festivals, and then recently was ready for theatrical release, and we had a basically world premiere of the film at the Monica Theaters in Santa Monica. It had a nice run, and now we're moving with the film from states to states, going to major cities throughout the United States.
Well, what are you working on now?
That's an interesting question. I wasn't expecting you to ask me that. I'm working on a screenplay that I finished. I'm polishing it now. It's called For the Love of Rumi. It's about spirituality, and it's about this great 13th century Persian poet, Rumi. And it's a fascinating story. I can't wait to do it.
All right, great. Where are you going with this film now, with Broken Bridges? What's
Basically, it's going to have its theatrical release, which is started, as I said a while ago. And once it completes its theatrical release, it would be released on DVD nationally. And then, of course, it will start its theatrical run, hopefully in other parts of the world. And then it goes to DVD. And films are like babies, you know. When they're made, once they're made, they have the life of their own. They take off,
you should
and
let
things
go.
happen to them.
You should let go. Who's the filmmaker have all that influence on you? Is there anybody in particular?
It's actually interesting. My cinema, if I may call that, is a artistic and informative cinema. In other words, for me, the blend of art and information is the perfect way to make film. So as the result, I have two groups of filmmakers that have influence on me, if we could call that. Visually, I like John Ford, large screen and the panoramic shots and so forth. And yet, there are various other filmmakers who emphasize on the story and information and the drama that I also like their works.
Looking at this footage, I can't help but the folklore is very important in the story itself.
Absolutely, that's the part I mean by informative. So
yeah.
The wonderful thing about the subject matter of the broken bridges, the film that we're discussing it, is that it in a sense brings information about an area of the world that we have not been exposed to it. So in addition to be historically, politically informative, it's also very exotic. It's very pretty to look at.
Where a person will go to watch art film, because you know how the big studio has monopoly on the theater, if I may say so.
Well, the thing is that there are established art houses that have survived the onslaught of the studios.
And you have something like that yourself?
I used to have one myself.
Not anymore?
In 1984, I started a theater in Venice called Fox Theater. Turned the name to, it used to be known as Fox Venice, then it turned to be, I turned it to Fox International, and I started showing many good independent films. Actually, these were the films that mostly had difficulties to find a home.
And somebody said you have a film festival a year round?
Absolutely.
That's a fantastic statement.
Yeah.
Where somebody could get some information about your film and where it's going to play in?
We have a website. I'll leave you with our.
They could check with the information in the end of the show.
I'll give you the information for our company. The telephone number is 310-396-9898, and the company's name is International Home Cinema. So if anybody wish to call, we can provide them with all kinds of information about the films we distribute and the films I have made. I've made 7 films, and we're going to make them all available. And then also, if they want to contact us on our web address, our web address is film production 5, that's number 5, at yahoo.com.
Okay. There's one trend always existed as old as cinema, which is a filmmaker, he's a writer or like to write. Where is that? How much you identify with that, and what's the reason behind that?
Behind writing also?
Writing and directing.
Well, it's a very good question. I think that is mostly used as auteur cinema, that the filmmaker who conceives the film has more or less control on the idea. And when you write the story, it's basically the story is in your mind. As you well know, what we think doesn't always translate so well into literature. So when you are the writer-director, you're in a very unique position to actually transform what is in your mind to the film. Because if you wrote the screenplay, another director is going to direct it, and that director is going to have more or less his own world of ideas related to your story. But when you write and direct it, you have that idea completely. And that way, I think is in a sense, is a very privileged position to be in as a filmmaker.
It is. Speaking of world of ideas, how much of this world of ideas of yours is biographical?
I think the movie is not biographical, but there is no reason.
Is there anything biographical triggered the idea?
Well, absolutely. I think I come back from an area where the film is filmed. So I'm very familiar with the historical events, political events, and also scenery of that area. And I happen to think that is a very unique area. And the idea of making this film actually is triggered from that background. That background could be referred to as being autobiographical. In other words, the environment I lived in, the influences I had in that environment, and then the immense desire to take that and bring it to Americans for them to see. I think that element of it is where you could refer to it as biographical, which is filmmakers' experience.
Do you see any responsibility to the filmmaker as in political responsibility?
Well, absolutely. I think once we take away the word political, because basically information is the main source, which is then diverted to history, political controversy. So basically, if we went to the source of all those words, it goes back to information. I would love to inform while I make art, because it's a wonderful blend. And so therefore, when you start informing, you are then talking about politics, because you're talking about history. That should not necessarily make anybody a political filmmaker, but I would say something very interesting. As far as I'm concerned, and I'm quoting one of my professor at UCLA, Bob Rosen, who's a great man, very knowledgeable. He once said in a class, show me a film that is not political.
Yeah. In pursue more politics and more art, we're going to go to this clip, and we'll be right back.
House of Happiness. This is where the couples get married.
Oh, are you here? Are you off in dreamland? Come on.
Dana
Why is it that you are here in Baku?
You know, it's great to see film like this being done, and what's greater is to see film like this being distributed in the US of A.
Thank you.
We have about 1 minute left. What do you like to say to your audience?
Well, I think I'll follow up your thought, which is absolutely great, that old stigma that people used to have about independent films are gone, because many good independent filmmakers have made many good films, and the films have been very successful and popular. So the most important thing that I would like to say is that it is wonderful that people are supporting independent films and independent filmmakers, and I would salute them for that. And I would say that independent filmmakers have so much more to offer, and many good filmmakers work very, very hard to bring about a movie for the audience.
Thank you very much. That was great.
Thank you. Thank you.